Today we're going to do a review on Timemore's newest grinder, the Timemore S3 coffee grinder. Now usually Timemore's products, most products out there have really long names, but this is just called the S3 grinder. Now immediately when looking at this grinder, the first thing that you can notice immediately is the outer rings. So you can see the outer rings adjustment right here. It's awesome, and we really like this. It's Timemore's newest outer ring adjustment grinder. But let's just first talk about the price. For about 160 US dollars or 470 ringgit, what do you actually get for this grinder, and is it worth it? So let's look at what comes in the box, right? So the box comes like this. Obviously I've taken out the grinder. It comes with a super nice pouch where you could carry your grinder and bring it around with you. Obviously it comes with a warranty book and so on. It comes with a handy little brush for you to brush stuff, and that's about it. So it's pretty simple, a really nice box by Timemore as usual. And let's put this box aside and let's talk about the star of the show, the grinder itself. Now immediately holding this grinder itself, it's super heavy. Now let's just weigh it and see how heavy it is, right? So when we weigh it, this is about 800 grams. So it's huge. If we compare between the C3, which is the older model, it's about 540 grams. So almost 200 grams, or actually more than 200 grams heavier than the C3. Because the unique thing about this grinder is everything is made up of metal, right? It's a hefty chunk of beast. The handle here, it's also foldable. You could fold the handle like this and bring it with you. It's really compact. The other nice thing about the handle here is that it has a little rubber knob here where basically if you fold the handle, you do not scratch the surface of the grinder, right? The outer surface. Now let's talk about the catch tray. The catch tray here, it's a pretty nice metal again. I think it can hold about 30 grams to 35 grams of coffee. So it's a pretty nice size coffee grinder. And let's deassemble this grinder itself, right? So first of all, you can take this apart by just pulling it. And then let's talk about the grinds available. So Timemore proclaimed that this grinder can grind espresso, mocha pot, it's even written here, pour over, and French press. So espresso is from 0 to 1 clicks. Mocha pot is 0.5 to 2 clicks, pour over is 5 to 8, and then French press is 8 to 9. So it has total of 9 settings here, 9 ring settings, right, that you can adjust it by. And every click, so it's not stepless, it's a click, but every click gives you 5 microns. So that's really sensitive, right, in that sense. Now, the downside about this grinder after testing it for months is that we felt that this grinder, it's really nice in terms of its pour over capabilities, but I don't think it can do espresso as well. What we found out is that when we grind it at 0, or when we set the grind settings at 0 and we grind it for espresso, we could only get about 20 to 30 seconds of a shot, 20 to 22 seconds, sorry, of a shot, and you couldn't get much finer than that. So if you want something for espresso, this might not be the grinder for you. But let's look at the internal burst and see what the burst or how the burst looks like, right? So we're still discussing about the build quality of the grinder itself. So you have this little tab knob here, and then later on you have a washer, you can call it, and finally you have your burst. So it's a little bit dirty right now, but this is the burst that are in here. Now the unique thing about this burr is that it's still a S2C burr, so similar like the older models, the C3 and C3S. But what's interesting about this burr is that it's bigger in diameter. So being that it's bigger in diameter, it also means that generally it could grind a better quality grind, right? And also what we found out is that by testing and using this a lot when compared to the C3, the uniformity of this grind size is or this grinder is a lot more uniform than the C3. Now, don't get me wrong, the C3 is already good enough, but this, at a certain setting, at about the pour over setting of 5 to 8, the uniformity of it is really good. That's the burr, and let's take out the shaft. Oops, take it out. Okay. Okay, so you have a spring right here, right? And finally, you have a shaft. The shaft it comes with a bearing, and it's a huge chunk of metal, to be honest. It's like the biggest diameter shaft I've ever seen in a hand grinder. Now, it's actually even thicker than a common dente. But now, the thing about to note about or unique about this grinder is also it has a red bearing grinder. Now, not because it's red, that's why it's special, but it's red so that it's really, really thin. And the reason that they design it in such a way is so that they hopefully will be as little play as possible in the shaft. Now, you don't want your shaft to wobble too much or to be out of sync, right? Because if it's out of sync and it's not exactly straight, when you grind, it will not be uniform again, right? And then finally, you have another washer in here, and you have the star of the show, which is the inner case, right? The outer burr is right here and the inner burr. So let's just put it back. And so to put it back is really easy. Again, you have your bearings here, right? You just put your bearing down below, right? All the way till you see the top red center shaft here. You have a washer that is down below. You have to put your washer first, right? And then the spring. After that, you put the burr, which is really, really important. And then you will put this little knob here. Now, the reason why they designed this little knob is so that later I'll show you that you don't have to calibrate. The beauty about this grinder is you don't have to calibrate your grinder all the time because it's supposedly supposed to be self-calibrated, right? So now you put this on, you put your crankshaft on, or handle, and then you just turn it. So you're supposed to turn it all the way till you reach the end point, and that's the lock, right? For traditional grinders that has internal settings, you basically turn and adjust your grind settings based on this, right? But this grinder here, your grind settings is adjusted not based over here, but outer, right? So you want to keep this lock. Now, what we found out, back to the espresso part, what we found out is that when it is at its lock position, even when we put the grind settings to be at 0, let's go to 0, right? At 0, we still could turn and just a little bit of sound, a hair of a sound, right? And so it shows that actually this grinder could even go even further, but I'm not sure why Timemore didn't really do the tolerance check, because they claim to be able to do espresso, but at the same time, we couldn't actually make espresso to work on this grinder. So we're not too sure what's going on. Not sure if it's a manufacturing issue or so on, but we found a lot of users out there on the internet and even people out there that have similar issues with us. And then when we approached Timemore, not much was said, right? They gave us a new burr to try to exchange it, but we still felt that it couldn't grind as fine as like the C3 or the C3S, right? So now let's try to grind some coffees, right? What I have with me today is a Colombian Siracusa. It's a pretty nice coffee, super unique, although it's a anaerobic coffee, but it smells amazing. So you can store actually a maximum of 40 grams. That's huge. That's a lot of coffee, right? If you're bringing it on camping, you can just store your coffee in here, and then later on grind it whenever you want to do a pour over. You could actually do 2 servings. So, and let's grind it up, and let's time ourselves and see how long it takes to grind a 20 gram of coffee at a pour over setting, right? 25 to 26 seconds. Not too bad, right? Pretty fast actually for a grinder like this, and it's expected to be. Now today, our recipe will be we'll use a Haru switch. Now, for those of you who follow us, you know that that's our favorite recipe, basically. Favorite method. We're using actually Timemore filter paper. You use any filter paper you want. Doesn't really matter, at least in our opinion. I mean, there's a huge debate on filter papers. So let's wet it up, right? Again, so let me show you what a grind size 5 looks like, right? So you can see. Now, you can see it looks pretty fine, but actually it's not like super fine, right? It's just that because it's so uniform that it kind of seems like it's really fine, but actually it's not. It's actually just nice source. Now to conclude it, right? Just to compare this to, in terms of taste quality, the S3 wins hands down because what we found is that the grind uniformity is a lot more uniform. The sweetness, the acidity it's presented, even the body itself, it's way nicer, right? In our opinion. But if you're a beginner and you're looking for your beginner setup grinder, let me tell you this: don't spend the extra money. Just buy the C3 or C3S. We find it to be actually way like a lot better in terms of price, right? When you take price into consideration, this is about 80 to 90 US dollars only, whereas this is 2 times more. But but don't get me wrong, this grinder is actually good enough for beginners. But if you're looking for an end game grinder, a grinder that can give you one of the best pour over cups, but you don't want to spend $300-400 on a Commandante and so on, or a cleaning grinder, we think that this S3 grinder really produces a super yummy cup. Like, again, Timemore has, I think, outdo himself again, and I think that their grinder here, the S2C, really works for your hand grinder, and we really enjoy cups coming from this particular grinder. So, what are your opinions? If you're looking for an end game grinder, maybe this would be the one. But if you're just a beginner, we still recommend the C3, and we've done a video, so check it down and the links below. See you in the next one. Bye. Juicy.